everyone, and welcome to the Autism Hope Summit's third year back. We are just so excited, and we have an amazing next speaker. Dr Chadwick, we're going to be talking here with her about the critical step in your autism protocol. Now, I've had the pleasure of just briefly meeting you before this interview. I've read your bio. I am just blown away of all the work that you've been doing in our field. And so before we get started, maybe we can just, let the audience know about who you are and why you're so passionate.
Okay, lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And of course, I'm delighted to be here. So a little bit about me. My journey began really when my daughter was born very prematurely, and she spent quite a bit of time in hospital, and many months in fact, and she came back home and everything was good. And then when she was about 4 years old, she got scarlet fever, and after that she developed what we now know is known as PANDAS, which is the pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorder associated with the streptococcal infection. And at the time, she's over 16 years old now, and at the time we didn't really know too much about this. And so for me, having always had a massive interest in nutrition, and growing up with my mum always looking in her book to make sure that we didn't have to make a trip to the doctors, and so that was quite a natural step for me to sort of veer towards that. My background was in business for many years, so sort of my journey began of trying to figure out what on earth is going on. And so I went back to university, and I did my degree in nutrition, and literally from day one I understood this incredible connection between the gut and the brain, and so that was it. And so for me it was such a natural step to start working with children where I knew the brain, the immune system, and all the other underlying things that ultimately contributed to that was so significant, and it was just so natural to work with the kids. I've had the pleasure of working with over 1,500 children, and mostly these are children on the spectrum, but also some children who have PANDAS. Well, within the autism spectrum there is that, but then outside the autism spectrum you have that too. So it's a complex old world, and I've understood the complexity over the years. And I've understood that there are probably three real big guns that cause, or big sort of triggers that affect our children. And I find, the gut dysbiosis, the microbiome is, of course, we all know, has a huge impact on the brain, but also the immune system, how our immune cells are reacting. And then the underlying toxic load can have such an impact on the children. And sometimes I find that if you don't get rid of the toxic load, we can't get the other work done. So it's never one thing, it's always a combination of things. But there are just certain things that certain steps that have to be taken. And it's become a compulsion of mine to learn more and more, because the more you learn, the more you realize how complex this is, and how much more there is to understand and learn. So that's where we are. I love what I do. I mean, I don't see it as work really. For me, it's just a pleasure. Honestly, it really is. And I just so that's how I got into it. I hope that helps you.
Absolutely. And I know that, I don't know if I'm saying this right, you're across the pond, is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I'm based in the UK, I should have said. I have a clinic in London in Harley Street where we see all the children, and I work with international patients, of course, as well, because we have to. And I, so we do remote clinic as well as doing the clinic face-to-face, run lots of labs for the kids. It's a very comprehensive program to try and understand what's going on. And yeah, so that's it.
And now you had talked about, different interventions that you've done and tried. Is there one that's like a top intervention that you feel like has across the board helped majority of your patients?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big topic, is toxic load. I mean, it's just the one thing where we know it's there, we can identify it, but it's been difficult to know how to do it without causing too much havoc in the children. And when I found the Ironclads by MD, which is my best clinical tool at the moment, about 16 months ago, for me, it was just like, it was almost like such a lift, sort of all this like pressure of trying to, how do we get the mercury out, and how do we get the aluminium out? And it's almost like, wow, there's this incredible simple machine which has all this research, and I actually found out about it through my patients. So and then I looked into it myself, then I bought one myself, and then I tried it with my family, and it was incredible. I mean, we couldn't believe what was going on. And so when I found out how much research there was in this particular, the Ironclads by MD, I started recommending it to my patients, and it was just like everything else started working better. You know, all these things that I knew we needed to do with the children, because, you know, we could see it in the lab work, we could see it clinically. And there were kids where everything was so reactive, you know, you couldn't get to level 2 without so much struggle. Almost kind of that melted away. And that was, for me, just, I've not seen anything like that before.
Now, for those that don't know, and there's probably many that are watching that are like, what is she talking about? Like, what is that? You know, so let's explain what is that?
Okay, so the Ironclads by MD is a foot bath, which looks so innocuous. You know, it's like a gentle thing. So children put their feet in water in a tub, and there's an electronic pad which controls, it's like the brain of it all. And it's got a lead, and it's connected to a steel plate, and the steel plate goes in the water. So basically, the children put their feet in it for between 15 minutes and 45 minutes, really depends on the program that we put them on. And they do this at home. People purchase the machine, they do this at home. Or I think in the States, you have centers where you can go and do this. Whereas in the UK, we're not quite there yet. There's only one place in the UK where that can be done. And what happens is, sort of the way it works is, in a very, very simple way, is that this ionization that occurs by splitting the water molecule between sort of a hydrogen, which is positively charged, and the oxygen, so the H2O, which is negatively charged, and then it creates an ion, and that works by like a magnetic pull to pull toxins out of the body. Some of it comes out into the water, so the water color changes. But mostly the detox is happening afterwards. And the work that AMD has done has shown us that actually what's happening is it's coming out in the urine. And there's some research being done in sort of on cortisol levels and what's happening in the stool, and lots of other things, because this is exciting. It's one of those things that I think it has an impact on many levels and we don't quite know. So that's what we do. The children use that. The research, would you like me to talk to you about the research?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so these are the things that drew me to it in the first place. First of all, research, efficacy, safety, all of the things that they tick every box. They've been in business for 15 years, etc. They have, AMD, which is the manufacturer, and so the research that I saw was really in 2015 or 2016. They had done 2 research trials, which were both 4 months each. And the first one was with 25 children aged between 2 and 13 who were all on the spectrum. And this was over a 4-month period where they were doing a foot bath, so every other day for between 15 minutes and 30 minutes. So it was at least 15 minutes. And then the way they measured the progress was to look at the ATEC score. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with the ATEC score. But perhaps I should explain what it is in case people are not.
Absolutely.
So ATEC score is the Autism Treatment Evaluation Checklist, which is, as clinicians, it's a brilliant tool for us to see how well an intervention is doing, because it's based on a questionnaire. Usually the parents complete the questionnaire for the child, and it looks at various different difficulties or challenges that the child has, and then at the end of it you're given a number basically, and anything under 10, you know, we all have quirks, so anything under 10 is sort of considered as fairly normal, neurotypical, and anything between sort of 10 and 50 is deemed as low to moderate. 50 to 100 I would say is considered as moderate to high, and then anything over 100 is considered as high. So the ATEC score is just an evaluation tool. It's not a diagnosis or anything like that. So the ATEC score were taken at the beginning and every single month over the 4-month period. And then an average was taken of how many percentages the ATEC score dropped as the result of this intervention. And at the end of 4 months, the ATEC score average drop was 35%, which is just incredible, really. It's just unheard of. And then several months later, AMD in conjunction with, this was AMD, who's a manufacturer, in conjunction with the Thinking Mums TMR, Thinking Mums Revolution, and they did the trial. And the second one was again the same, except that the age group was increased. So the age group was 4 to 19. Again, this was 27 children, completely separate children, different kids. And again, that was done 4 months, but the schedule changed because the feedback from the parents was, the more you seem to do this, the better the outcome seems to be. So the schedule was changed to doing 3 consecutive days of between 15 minutes and 30 minutes of the Ironclads foot bath, and then taking a 1-day break. And then again, an ATEC score was used, and at the end of 4 months, the average drop was 55%.
Wow.
And in fact, in children who were older, who were the sort of the 12 to 19 age group, their average ATEC score drop was 65%. And that's just not unheard of. You almost always see the other way around, where the interventions seem to generally tend to have a better outcome with slightly younger kids. So for me, this was just incredible. And so if you imagine if a teenager, you have had an ATEC score of 100, that would be like quite severe, you know, starting to be quite severe. And after 4 months, they were at a 35, which is what you're talking about. And that's sort of mild to moderate. Mm-hmm. In 4 months by doing this simple thing, which
you
is
weren't doing anything else, like that was the
nothing else changed. No supplements were used. I mean, all the kids, you know what it's like with kids on the spectrum. Most of them, if you're in this sort of biomed world, work has been done with them and the diet and all of that. But nothing in those 4 months changed. No other intervention.
On their diet, they were still on whatever supplements.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And no extra things were added. So for me, that is it's just not that, you just don't get that. You just don't get that with other.
Yeah, with your own practice, since you've implemented the Ion Cleanse foot bath, obviously I'm assuming your practice has different age groups, you know, in your practice. And you obviously see the ATEC scores of the parents, you know.
Sure.
Do you see the same type of results between the 30 and the 65% depending on the child?
I've kind of, yeah, I mean, I haven't been as judicious as they have in sort of keeping a tab on ATEC scores, but what I have seen is I've got a little percentages of what percentage of children are the incredible ones where they have the result, like after almost first or second foot bath, I get an email from parents going, oh my God, he said something, or he looked at me and he said, I love you, whatever, you know, all these amazing things that you just don't expect. And that's about a quarter of the children have that immediate response, and it continues. Mm-hmm. And then you've got about 10% of the kids don't respond, or very limited response. And I don't know why that is. And this is the mystery, because there doesn't seem to be anything in common in these children. It's not an age thing, it's not a severity thing, it's not an underlying problem thing. It just seems to, I don't know, that's what we need to figure out. But the rest, which is, so I would say 65% of the children, they just have these lovely little progress gains. And it's never one sort of ride. It's always like this, 2 steps forwards, 1 step back with, but beautiful changes. And suddenly, a few months down the road, you're looking at a child and they're going to sleep well, they're going to the toilet well, they're communicating, they're playing with their friends, it looks so much better. That's another thing. And actually, one of the things which has always been the biggest thing to unlock in the children is the speech. That's one thing that I repeatedly get feedback saying that has improved, or it's suddenly appeared after no speech. And it seems to be, I've got maybe 150 of my patients. I mean, we've been in this Ironclads world for only about 16 months or so it's not that long, but 150 of my patients are using it. And I would say they are from ages 2 to about in the 20s. And that would be, majority of them are probably under 12, I would say, but there's a good chunk of them who are older. And we're just making progress. And then suddenly you notice, they're not so sensitive to foods anymore. Or you notice they're managing supplements that they were blowing up on before. And then we can get that sort of other things under control, like the ammonia and yeast and bacterial infections. And we can use the herbs that we couldn't do before. So everything is just like, everything starts opening up and all these possibilities start opening up. So it's not just the work it does, it's the work it allows us to continue to do as well.
Now, are they allowed to stay on different medications? I know some people have seizures or different anti-inflammatory medications they may or may not be on, supplements. Do you see any negative reaction if they're on medications and doing the foot bath at the same time?
No, it's an excellent question. The AMD has always recommended that if anyone's taking any medication, to take it at least 2 hours away from doing the foot bath, and that's the recommendation. Children with seizures, we have seen that we have to be very careful. It's almost like they are the ones, the kids with the seizures are the ones who need it the most. Because their underlying toxic load can be significantly higher than even the other average children on the spectrum. So we have to go very carefully and make sure that we monitor things. And I would say that's probably the trickiest group of patients to work with. But once you get there and you manage the medication along with the supplements and the diet and the iron cleanse schedule being right, then you can see that seizures eventually, when we've ridden that sort of difficult wave at the beginning, can start really significantly coming down. And sometimes it's from the beginning. I had one patient who was who very, very rarely has seizures, and he was having multiple seizures a day, and that has just vanished. And it's almost, we've gotten used to seizures, can't even remember, it's so. It's different strokes for different folks. It's just, you have to be careful there, I would say.
Now, you said 2 hours away from the medications. Does that include supplements or just like an RX of some sort?
Yeah, exactly. So prescription medication largely.
And do you see any negative, so all these kids that are you said there was a group that pretty much didn't see anything, and then but that's a very small group, and then you see majority seeing something, whether it's 2 steps back forward, 1 step back, or continuing to go. As we know, this is a roller coaster and a journey, and it's all over the place at different points. Do you see anybody ever having negative reactions? For me as a parent, I have a child with autism, so for me it's like when somebody says, well, either you're going to see something or not, that's always a good sign, because it's like, well, I have nothing to lose. But sometimes even on diets, because I've been on, we've been on mini diets, sometimes you see it be a little more difficult in the beginning because maybe there's a die-off of some sort. Do you see anything like that with the foot?
I think sometimes we notice that there's a bit of aggravation in the children. I mean, I'd say probably 80% plus they have a smooth ride and nothing much happens. But you do have that lovely complex kids who are 20% of it, where we need to support them a little bit more. So I have found that when at the beginning they can either get a little bit aggravated, agitated, some of their symptoms are exaggerated for a short while, a bit more stimming than usual. Then we realize either we're going too fast, too much, detox too soon. We don't have enough support in place, especially for the adrenals, because they have to work really, really hard. And they're already working very hard. So these are children who are in fight or flight most of the time anyway, but you're putting quite a lot of pressure in the demand on the body is high. So putting things in place to support the adrenals, adrenal cortex, or whatever it is your practitioner recommends to you. And then sometimes putting in something like multi-minerals, which are, you don't lose minerals doing the ion cleanse, but you use up minerals to detoxify. So sometimes you can get low. So your magnesium, zinc, and the trace minerals are quite important, and potassium, sodium, lithium, all of those things. So really good, broad, good quality multi-mineral and adrenal support seems to completely sort these kids out. And tweaking the schedule. They will tell us, they're not like little robots where it's, we don't sort of program them in and go, okay, output now, please, wouldn't it be great? But it's not like that. So we just go with how they are and we ride it out. I mean, if parents continue to use it, which is in majority of cases, then we ride those out by just tweaking the plan for that child. But the big things that I found are very helpful are the mineral support for those type of children and the adrenal support.
And now how does the ion cleanse compare to something like the infrared sauna that many of us have heard about, other detoxification tools, hyperbaric oxygen chamber? I know that's another big one. How would you compare the infrared sauna how would you compare the foot bath with something like the infrared sauna?
So we've had both as well personally, so I can speak from personal experience as well. We've had an infrared sauna mat, which is, first we had this cocoon where you sort of go in there like a little sleeping bag and you go in it, and then which is sort of heated through electrical current. And we then swapped that for a water heated one. So it's a mat you put in the bed under the sheet, and you sort of have a timer on it, and we have that, and it's heated. There are water pipes inside the mat, so they're heated that way. Now, we had our home EMF proofed, a while back, and the person who was doing that at the time we had the cocoon, he was checking all our appliances, and there was quite a lot of activity on the cocoon that we had, which sort of my heart sank when I realized, my daughter had been sleeping in it for quite some time, or having her infrared mat in it. So we then found the water one, which seemed to have zero activity on that front. Okay, so for me, I don't know enough about the technology to be confident and say that it's all good. Mm-hmm. There might be ones where you have to be careful. What are they emitting? Are they doing what it says? I'm not sure about it. I've got a bit of a question mark on infrared saunas. And from an outcome perspective, I can't say that we saw a huge amount over using it for probably more than a year. But I do know people do benefit from it. So it hasn't been a big gun in my practice. I can't say that I've had parents tell me, oh, infrared mats were amazing or saunas were amazing. But I don't want to dismiss it because I don't want a child to miss out on something that might help them. So it's a case of figuring out what is right for your child. So for us, the Ironclads was a fairly immediate response. It was very obvious that it was doing something very good, very, very quickly. So it's, for me, I like to go with something where, of course, you've got all the research and evidence base to go with it, which just makes me feel a lot more confident using it. So yeah, I sort of don't want to poo-poo it, but at the same time, I don't know. It's a question mark on the infrared saunas for me.
And then what about any other detoxification tools? Is there any others that you...
We not really. I mean, we've had, you know, we've used herbs and trying to sort of promote detoxification through things like Epsom salt baths, and I like using something called castor oil packing, which I love, which is we continue to use all these things. It's not just the ion cleanse. We pick and choose from different tools depending on what the child needs. And castor oil packing, which is you put a castor oil pack on the liver and gallbladder to get the liver flushed out, and it's another very simple strategy that I used to do quite a lot. Okay, so it's a very old-fashioned thing, but it's just one of my I used to always say to parents who were like felt like they'd been sort of hit by a truck at the end of our consultation because there's so much information to take in, and I say, right, before you do anything, if you walk out of here and you do nothing else, do a castor oil pack. This is way before the ion cleanse, of course. And that is, you soak a cloth with organic castor oil, and you put it on the liver and gallbladder like a little blanket, and then you apply heat to it. So you start with about 10 minutes, like a hot water bottle. And then you take the little cloth off, you fold it up, you put it in a Tupperware box, you put it in your fridge to keep the oil nice and fresh, and then you do it again the next evening. You bring it out, bring it to room temperature, put it back. And what that does is you do it 3 days on and 3 days off because you don't want to tax the liver too much. It's amazing for children who have constipation, and gets that motility, the bile flow moving, and the liver starts releasing lots of toxins. And this is why you start with 10 minutes, because it's too much for the system otherwise. And you build the time up to about 30 minutes gradually. Sometimes there's so 3 days on, 3 days off with that. And ultimately you want to do it for about 30 minutes each session. And sometimes there's a sensory thing where the kids don't want to have the cloth on because it's just horrible for them. And so we just rub a load of castor oil in that area and put a hot water bottle on for, again, 15, 20 minutes. You can extend the time a little bit on that as your first step, and then build it up towards half an hour. And then you take the heat pad or hot water bottle away, and they go to sleep and sleep in it. And it's soaked in by the morning. And that's the two things that it's done, like as a symptom relief for me, has been one, the bowels have started moving properly without you doing. Sorry?
How fast does the bowel start to move?
Literally from after the second session. Wow. And then the second is anxiety levels are brought down quite significantly, which just tells you how much anxiety that kids have is to do with too much toxic load in the body. So when you start releasing that, it really helps. And we still do all these things.
I'm just so fascinated. I never heard about this. So yeah. You do this before bedtime? Is that what you said?
Ideally, yeah. So you do it before bedtime because it's a bit messy, and you also want the oil to stay on you even if you take the pack off, you know, because it sort of continues to work. And most kids actually love it because it just makes them feel quite relaxed. Again, sometimes too much detox too fast. They can feel very tired the next day, you know, a bit of sort of dark circles under the eyes, and then you know you've done too much. But if we do the 10 minutes, and you know, parents get a bit overexcited like I used to, you know, whenever I find something good, I just go, oh, it's better, let's do more time. And then it's too much and you have to pull back. So if you follow these simple time guidelines, then it's actually quite a smooth process in most of it.
What I love is parents can do this for themselves.
Absolutely.
And when you said the cloth, I imagine it being like an organic piece of cotton of some sort?
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, actually the Natural Dispensary, which is like a online pharmacy thing we have here, which is a very good one because it has lots of things there. They sell it as part of it. So if you look up castor oil and then go, it's like a lint cloth, but it really doesn't matter. You want something that can soak up the oil, but be wet enough for it to sit on
the liver.
On the liver. It's a bit messy, you know, you have to put towels around you and all of that, but these are nothing. They're nothing, you know.
And
so
water bottle or heating pad.
Absolutely. Hot water bottle, heating pad. It's fantastic. I love it.
I love that I learn new stuff, and I've been in this community for 14 years and I've never heard of this. Like, that's like so cool, and it's so inexpensive for people to try. So I love that. Now, we talked a little bit about the kids that might not get results. What do we do about those children, the tough cookies? You know, how do we help those children?
Okay, so first of all, on the Ironclads side, let me say that when, you know, the Ironclads Body offers a 60-day 100% money back guarantee, which is one of the deal clinchers for us. You know, we're not product people. I get approached all the time to represent products because I'm a person of interest in the autism community. And I just don't. It's not our thing. And, we only do the Ironclads because it's just so awesome. So, of course, with the Ironclads, the big thing for us has been that we can give people their money back because that's what the company offers if it doesn't work for the children. So they have 60 days to try it, really, and it is a full guarantee. We offer it in the UK, so we stock the Ironclads in the UK, and we take any returns back in the UK and Europe. I mean, we've barely had any. I have to say our return rate is less than 2%. So most of the time it works. So from an Ironclads point of view, if it doesn't work for the child, then you can then take the money and use it for something else. So that's absolutely fantastic. And the kids, that are the tough nuts, we keep trying to figure it out, as time goes by, new understanding comes, and this is the beauty of our community, driven by parents and passionate practitioners, because only recently, I'm not sure if you saw the work by Robert Navio, which talking about the cell danger response. I don't know if that is something familiar or not. It's probably the most exciting research in the autism world I've seen in many years. It's almost, I palpate, my heart goes. I want to know more what's happening. So Robert Navio has written several papers. He's a researcher in the States, and he has a team, and they've come up with the theory that basically autism and all chronic conditions are as a result of something called the cell danger response being triggered in the body. And he's saying that if you can imagine that there are all these different inputs and toxicity and immune dysregulation and microbiome issues and all of these things going on. So he has this amazing, lovely picture of a bell and all these arrows like mallets hitting this bell, but the end result is something which is the cell danger response. And the response is a natural thing that's happening in the cell, and it's allowing, it's a warning signal for all the other cells that something's wrong, Mm-hmm. And then it goes into detail explaining how the mitochondria produces ATP, but ATP is not just in the cell, which gives us power and like batteries in our cells, but there's ATP outside the cell, which is this warning mechanism. And then there's ATP at every synapse, which means that ATP's role in our children is humongous, so much bigger than we thought. And what he did, he worked on a way of improving that cell danger response or quietening it down. Because what he says is that the cell danger response is there to protect us, But sometimes it's like border control. It goes through borders and it goes, right, have you done enough healing? Okay, you can go to the next border. But what happens is at one of the borders, it just gets stuck. And he found a drug, it's an old-fashioned 100-year-old drug called Suramin, which he used with a very, very small group of children with ASD with unbelievable results, almost immediate.
What was it?
It's called Suramin, Suramin. And his work isn't on Suramin. Suramin is an anti-purinergic drug, which means that, if I can use his analogy, which is, it's a bit like our cells are like water balloons, and the cell danger response has caused the water balloons to have too many pinpricks in, and it's leaking ATP. And so it's making ATP to power up our cells and all of the other things it needs to do. But let's say it's making 30% ATP, but it's losing 20% ATP. So you're left with little for all these other functions that you need. So it's almost Suramin is like a finger in the dike. It sort of stops these leaks and allows the body to regroup and go back to homeostasis and create balance back and give your body the chance to do the housekeeping that it needs to do, to get rid of the pathogens and to detoxify and all of these things. And the inputs are all to do with a disturbed microbiome. The majority seems to be from toxicity. A lot of it is immune dysregulation, but he's saying that this is all, there are lots of paths to ill health or ASD or chronic conditions, but there's one path back, which is through using a drug like this. So he's working on having more trials in this area. It's very hopeful. I love the simplicity of it. I love it makes sense, from what I've seen with the kids, it makes perfect sense to me. And of course, what we're trying to do with all of the detox and getting rid of pathogens and supporting the immune system is to stop these mallets ringing this bell and creating this cell danger response. And so we've all been right in a way, the parents and practitioners, that we're doing the right thing, but maybe there's something else that can be done to help speed things up for us,
Well, I always think of it as a hose, so it's kind of like I get a leak and then I cover a hole and then I get another leak. And so my son always feels like this really long hose in my backyard that is constantly springing leaks because I help one issue and then boom, another issue. And I feel like so many parents feel that same way. So I love this potential, help that we may be able to get. Now, my question for those watching, obviously not everybody has been in the biomedical world for a long time. Not everybody, maybe they just got diagnosed. Maybe they've been diagnosed, but they haven't, like I said, been on this journey and it's new to them. What does ATP stand for so they kind of get a better idea?
The ATP is just energy, if that's all you think about it. It's a way, our mitochondria, which are inside our cells, and we've got hundreds of them. It's not just, in the biology books, it's always one mitochondria and one this and that. It's not like that. You've got lots of mitochondria, which is just like your factory that makes you your energy. And ATP is your power. That's all it is. It's like a battery. It's just brings you to life. And you need that to be able to, for all the cells to be able to function properly. Mm-hmm. So if you just think of them as batteries in the cells, then that's sort of the best way to describe it. But the new understanding is we've always known that this mitochondria, this thing inside our cell, makes all this lovely ATP for us to have life. Mm-hmm. Otherwise we wouldn't live. But all the other jobs of the ATP are a newer understanding that, for instance, ATP, used as batteries, used as signaling to tell other cells that there's something wrong. And also let's say the saber-toothed tiger analogy that a lot of people use. There's something called glutamate, which a lot of us will be aware of, which helps us learn. It can be a negative thing if it's too much, but it helps us learn. So it's triggering all this synaptic activity. So imagine you're running away from the saber-toothed tiger. You need to remember every single detail. So that's firing away. But what happens is you have ATP on that synapse as well, which makes sure you remember it really, really, really well. And that's what it does. So it's got lots of different jobs in the body, but its main function is to give us life and energy.
Well, how exciting about this study. I hope they hurry it along so we...
They're trying to get funding. I mean, it's so exciting. I can't wait. I really can't wait to see what happens.
And I think that's what's so nice for parents that are listening. And it doesn't matter what age your child is. I feel like there's so many people like you out there and others, part of this summit even, and part of just, just the world in general that is trying to help autism. And I really believe, as a mother myself with a child, that we will continue to look for answers. We will continue to find answers. And I don't care what age your child is. I feel like they're capable of limitless growth. And, and I believe you, and like, I have that same belief system, like many of us that believe we're looking at autoimmune issues. And, how do we fix these? Now, one question I was thinking about was, there are a lot of foot baths out there, and I can tell you have a lot of passion about Ironclads by AMD. Why that foot bath? What makes them so different than any others that are out there?
Okay, so when I was, remember about 16 months ago, hearing about it, going, oh my God, why didn't I know about this? Have I been in a cave? What's going on? And then when I looked at it from a personal perspective. So I had all the questions that I guess someone wanting to purchase anything will have. And my first question was, hold on a second, you're mixing water and electricity together. How's that going to work? How safe is that? And then, so one of my first questions, and then, so that was when I realized they had medical grade technology. So 100% safety record. So even if they have an external power supply, and all that means is that you have the electronic pad, let's say, you have another child and there's an accident and they're running around, or there's a pet or something, and it has happened where the unit's fallen in the water, and you're not going to get electrocuted basically. Whereas with a lot of systems, the power supply is internal, which means that that can be a big problem. The other thing for me was the research. I mean, it's incredible, I need to know if this is worked, for us to be able to recommend it. And remember, we're not product people, to recommend it to patients, because I'm using it to get better outcomes for my patients. That's it. I need to see some kind of background. And for us, that was fantastic. The commitment to do 2 4-month clinical trials. I mean, that's huge. It's such an expanse, and it just showed commitment on their part, massive commitment. And then, of course, the 60-day money-back guarantee for me was massive. What can I say? I would never want one of my patients to buy one of these and then get stuck with it if it's not helping them. I don't think the company wants that. They don't want people. They want it to be a really good experience. And the service that they offer, the customer service is just ridiculous. It's so amazing, and very responsive team. They have they've set up a brilliant Facebook group called the Ironclads by AMD for ASD, which parents who've bought a machine or are looking to buy a machine can go and post and troubleshoot and ask each other questions and tell each other good stories and bad stories, or whatever it is. And so it's a community. It's not just some random retailer out there who's just trying to sell machines. They are genuinely interested. I mean, they have so many different research projects going on at the moment. I'm losing track, so they want to know what does this thing do? It's, how much better can we use it? So for me, there's nothing like it. And also another thing, which is from a technical point of view, they have a patent on something called a dual polarity system. So that means that the ions produce both a negative charge and a positive charge, as opposed to just one type of charge, which every other machine has. And that means you get a better detox. So that means that even if you have toxins in your body that are positively or negatively charged, they can get released from your system. So for me, and it was just the outcome, you know, the clinical results that I'm seeing from patients. It's that is worth more than anything that people tell, you know, when you see that it's working for them. So yeah, so for me, it was not a big decision, you know, it was a simple decision because there's Ironclads by MD and there's everyone else about 1,000 miles away. It's just like a no-brainer. Yeah.
What I love about it is that I love the money back quick guarantee, but I also, I love the fact that they have a rental program and it's a rent to own. I don't know, I'm assuming that's across the pond as well.
We haven't quite got there yet because we're not the manufacturer. So for us, it's not a business, you know, we import it, it's the UK.
So it's a little different. So those in the US.
A little bit different, and we have high taxation and all sorts of things here. So it's a little bit difficult to go, but we're working towards it. We're trying to see how, you know, make it available. We want to make it available, but it just has to be within the reality of the confines we have. But yeah, in the States, it's amazing. They have the rental program, which gives that great option to people.
Yes, in the States, for those that are watching, they have a rental program that you put down a small amount and then you pay monthly, and basically that monthly rate will go towards owning it. Which is very nice, and I think that's great for those to know. One other thing for those that are watching is that AMD, Ironclads by AMD, they're actually offering a free foot bath as a raffle within our summit here.
Wow.
It's just amazing, right?
Wow.
And so those that, if you want to participate in that, you need to look at the packages that we have. And so you have to go to autismhopesummit.com. You actually have to buy one of our packages so you can have all these amazing speakers like yourself and be able to have that for a lifetime and be able to have your significant other watch it and your best friend watch it and your mom and dad and your, you know, the grandparents, everybody, because the thing is we're a village. We have to create our village and we have to have as many people be part of that village. And for me as a mom, when I'm reading a book, and I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly looking online, sometimes it's just even too much for me to remember. And how wonderful to have this summit to where you can say, hey, can you watch that speaker for me and give me information? Can you watch that one? So it's a great way for you guys to have that. Also, I know one of our packages, we've done 2 other summits. The 2 other summits are also going to be part of that package. So it's almost like you're getting 3 years worth of amazing, right? Amazing information. To me, the cherry on the top is all the dollars we raise helps go back into scholarship programs for families through the Autism Hope Alliance, through our nutritional scholarship programs. So guys, this is a great opportunity. You know, we love what we do. We love being able to talk with people like you. I know that your schedule is so crazy busy. And I mean, just for you guys to know, I mean, we're 8 hours in different time zone here. This is how passionate people like Stella are about wanting to help our community. So I can't thank you enough for being here.
Pleasure. It's been a pleasure, honestly. Fantastic. Thank you.
I've really enjoyed it. And, you know, I want to leave the parents with a message of, you know, so many of us, sometimes we have hard days. And when I talk about hard days, they're harder than most people when they say hard days, right? And I say this often, I don't care if your child's 2 or 52, you know, wherever you are on the spectrum, can we leave a message that maybe have some type of message of hope for these families?
There is so much hope. You know, there are so many people out there who are committed to finding answers, who believe that autism is not the destiny of your child and that this wasn't meant to be, and that something has happened to these children. And I get a lot of parents who worry about saying that something's wrong with my child, you know, as if they're not loving them or they're not perfect. Of course they're perfect. We just want them to be healthy. And that's what we're working on. And there are so many people who are looking at it from not just one angle, which is the beauty, from lots of different angles. And this is it's like a snowball. It has picked up momentum in the last few years. And I just can't see it stopping. All I can see is that good things are going to come, and that people who are really interested in this area, who have credibility, who have science behind them, are trying to find answers. And just like the Navio team, this is a recent thing, and it's just like a grenade's gone off in my world. This is amazing stuff. So, and there'll be more of this. So I'm very hopeful for the families.
I think that's a wonderful message. And for all of you guys out there, remember, we're just not giving up. We're not going to stop knocking on doors. We're not going to stop trying to find new answers. We're going to keep bugging experts like Stella to say, hey, don't give up on us.
Please do. Yeah.
And so for all of you guys, thank you guys for watching. Until next time. Bye, guys.